If you could put up the slide, Ray. So as we're talking about membership this morning, I want to hit on why church membership matters and why it's important to join a church or what that function is. So we'll get to that. But every time I do a membership, some of you may have heard this story before, but it reminded me of these three pastors that we're talking about. They got together and there were bats in their church and they were trying to get rid of the bats. And this one minister said, they were making me so frustrated one day. I went home and got my shotgun and I started to shoot at the roof of the church. I put a bunch of holes in the church, but the bats still are there. They didn't leave. Another person said, the other pastor said, I tried to catch them and then I put them in my car and I drove 50 miles away and released them, and wouldn't you know it, they made it back to the church before I did. I still have the bats. And then the third pastor said, I don't have a problem with the bats anymore. And all of them said, well, how did you do it? And he says, well, it's simple. I just baptized and made them members of the church and I've never seen them again. Now we laugh, but that happens. Right? People join a church and then maybe we don't see them again. It just is the nature of the thing. So I want you to understand why it's important and why we do this and why we take time to recognize them up here, and then we support them by going and being part of the baptism with them. Because there are responsibilities for both new members and old members of the church, and why we are a family of faith. And there's something I want you to understand this morning, because some people will argue about this. I do not think it is possible to live our best life of faith, our best life with God, alone and isolated. I think that, yes, there are parts of religion and Christianity that are solo and they are private and we relate to God differently, but most of the time we come to be part of a community because it supports us and we walk. Just like we heard people get up and say, my life is hurting right now and we need prayers. How can we feel that support if I'm an island and at home? So being part of a family, being part of a church, being a member matters, not just for other people, but for you, because you are never alone and there are people walking with you. It's a mistake to think that you can live your life outside of a community like that. There's a famous story of Sparta, and the Spartan king was boasting to these other kings about how strong the walls of Sparta are and how impenetrable the walls are. So this king said, well, I have to go meet with Sparta and I want to see these walls. And when he got to Sparta and he talked to the king and he says, well, king, you've been boasting about all these walls and how strong they are and impenetrable they are, but I do not see any walls at all. And the king of Sparta just pointed to all of the people in Sparta, the men and women, and he says, those are the walls of Sparta. That is the strength of our city. It is no different with the church. You, my friends, are the walls. You are the building. You are the bricks that make this a church, and all of us together make it stronger. You put one or two bricks together, you knock them down. They're not very strong, but you put them all together and you mold them. And you have a wall that sometimes is impenetrable. But that is why it matters. So there's 4 things I want to talk to you about this morning. And the first one is why church membership matters is I will protect the unity of my church. Now I'm going to give you a couple Bible verses to write down that I didn't put up here. But it says, I will protect the unity of my church. In 1 Peter 1:22, it says that we do this by acting in love towards other members. Yes, that means you got to get along with each other, right? And that we support each other and we don't knock each other down and we don't try to hamper people, so that we act in love towards other members. In Hebrews 10:24, it says that we do this by building relationships, which you hear us talk about all of the time. The value of Sunday school groups, the value of the home groups, the value of other groups that we are part of here that build community and relationships that strengthen the bonds of the church. Ephesians 4:29, I will protect the unity of my church by refusing gossip. Why did I put that in there? Because that's the number one thing churches do, right? Sometimes somebody comes up to me and tells me something I did before I even did it, right? They heard somehow, and I was like, well, I didn't even do that yet, but that's great. So refusing gossip. And then Hebrews chapter 13, verse 17 says also by supporting the leadership of the church and what they are doing. And all of those things, again, are designed to build unity within the church and within the members. So when we join, we say that we will protect the church. And this word protect, when I do marriage counseling, right, or premarital counseling, I try to tell them part of your job as a spouse is to protect the other spouse. And I don't mean from physical danger or being a bad person. I'm talking about protect them from the world, build them up, hold them, love them, and have something to where you guys are together building each other up. It is no different with the church. We should not tear people down, but we should be building them up. Some of you are members of this church because maybe another church didn't do that. Or you came here and you realized, hey, I needed this in my life to walk with people and all of these things. We are support, not to hinder your fellow members. So I will protect the unity of my church. I will share the responsibility of my church. In 1 Thessalonians 1:2, it says, by praying for the ministries of the church. And in Romans 15:7, it says, by warmly welcoming those who visit. That is a key thing when somebody walks in here. And I will tell you this, we have done great jobs doing that, and we have failed miserably doing that. There are people that are in here right now because we made them feel welcome, and we made them feel part of the church, and that is great. There's other people that have come here and are not here because nobody even went up to them. Right? So we have to do a better job. We have to challenge ourselves to be welcoming and let those do that. We also have to uphold the church through prayer. I don't know how many of you actually pray for the church and the ministries of the church, but that is how we do it. We become and we say, here we are. Because we are loved and we feel welcomed by the whole family. I mean, it's nice when the pastor or the leaders of the church comes up or visits and says hi and how are you doing. But on some level, that's expected. But how great it is when your deacon or somebody from the church that maybe you don't know, or you get cards in the mail from a lot of different people. That is how you know the church. That is how you know, look, I am not alone. People care and they're wondering how I'm doing. I will serve the ministry of my church. So again, some Bible verses. 1 Peter 4:10 says, I will serve the ministry of my church by discovering my gifts and talents. So just like I told the kids this morning, we all have gifts and talents and we are all creative in our way. We are to find out how they are and help benefit the church, right? We all have these gifts. Ephesians 4:11 through 12 says that we can serve the ministry of the church by being fed by the church, by participating in the church, by going to the Bible studies, by listening. Todd said that you don't have to listen to me, and that's fine. Todd's going to a very warm place later on, right? Especially after the Ohio State statement, okay? But we can laugh and we can kid, and we know that even though we make jokes about it, it's important, and our faith grows because we become touched and we are connected with each other. So just, for instance, even the Bible study, see, this is why I talk with my hands. The Bible study that we're doing on Wednesday night about baseball and God, right? I picked that because it's fun. I picked it because it will just connect us. There was 10 of us in the room talking and all of us had smiles on our face. It doesn't mean that we have to do anything really all that great or meaningful. We can just get together and have fellowship and say, where do we see God in baseball or wherever it is? It's about being part of what we are doing here. Also, I will serve the ministry of my church. In Philippians 2:3 through 7, it says, by developing a servant's heart. This is one of the reasons some people hesitate to join a church, because they believe that once you join a church, you're going to be asked to be part of the church. Right? Does that make sense? So like a lot of people go to these mega churches for one reason, and that's because they don't have to be asked to help. So I'm going to let you know right now, if you join this church, if you are a member of this church, you will be asked to help. You will be asked to step up and continue the ministries of the church. We will ask you to use your gifts and develop your gifts to make this church better and minister to the community and the world. And we already do that. We have people here that are taking control of the backpacks that we do every week. I came here Monday morning and there was, I don't even know how many kids and mothers here having a good time. And there was a dad here, or there was a father here too. And it's just a good time. The Bible studies on Wednesday night, the kids programs, the Living Stones, your Sunday school classes, the home groups. We have opportunities that we can serve the ministry of the church. And by serving the ministry of the church, we are blessed as well. But we have to do that. And the last thing is, I will support the testimony of my church. And what that means is there's three things here. I will support the testimony of my church by attending faithfully. So, don't be like the bats and never come back. By giving regularly. And I know sometimes we don't like to talk about giving, but we give not just because we're supposed to. We give so the church can be a witness. We give so the church can be part of the community. We give so the church can be a vital part of your life as well. And also by living a godly life, which is in Philippians 1:27. That I will support the testimony of my church by living a godly life. You guys are representatives of God and representatives of Oakland. And I know that might seem heavy at times, and sometimes we don't want to be representatives, but we are. We live our life with a tag that says, I am God's, and I will live my life by what God is calling me to do. But again, your life is an example. The best witness you can give is by living your life in such a way that is welcoming to others and showing people that this thing we call faith and we call God is important. That is why we welcome and we clap for people that join. That's why we gather around the baptistry and support them when they make this commitment. That's why when people stand up and pour their heart out, we gather around them and pray. All of these things because we are bricks in the same wall. Oakland is our family. Your life, your passion, it becomes contagious. And people come not because, John does this or we have this music or this or that. They come because you made them feel welcome and they feel a part of something bigger than themselves. We are all bricks. I read a quote and it said that, the church is like Noah's Ark. Sometimes it stinks and it is messy, but if you leave the ark, you will drown. So instead of complaining about the mess and the stink, we all need to do something to keep it clean. But I love that. It may be stinky and messy, but if you leave, you're going to die, right? That is what we do. We are here to bring life into each other, support each other, encourage each other, build each other up, because we know that this world knocks each other down at any step we can. So let us pray. Lord, we thank you for this church. Lord, I thank you for the people that have come before and built this foundation. I thank you for the people that are joining the church today, the ones that will join in the future. I thank you for all the members that are sitting here that take the ministry of Oakland serious and make us go out into this world and leave our fingerprints everywhere. But Lord, help us to understand, Lord, that we are in this church to help us as well, to build each other up. So as we celebrate in these baptisms, as we celebrate in these memberships, help us to understand our own vows that we made to the church, our own vows that we made to your kingdom, so that we can live this life better and know what we do matters. And all of God's people said, Amen. If you'll please stand.